The pleasure of jhana is born of the seclusion from sensuality. By understanding the extent of it, by understanding the extent of your involvement with it, by understanding the extent of your engagement. Knowing the extent of sensuality and your freedom from it. Everyone seeks the end of craving. That is what their action attempts to accomplish. Restraint is not painful. Restraint reveals the pain of desire that you would be blind to in action. The pursuit of pleasure is felt already within the pain of not having it. Thus, a prospect of future pleasure is felt painfully. Sense objects are bait that imply pleasure. But the only pleasure is the relief from the pain of wanting them that they put on you. There is no pleasure outside of the phenomenon of pressure to engage with the body that is relieved. Pleasure is always secondary. You pursue pleasure when touched by pain. You only scratch. You only have to scratch when there is an itch. The sensual assumption is that the pleasure is outside of the pain, outside of the itch to engage with the body. Pleasure does not enter you from outside, just suffering arising and ceasing. Mind enduring with matter, pressure enduring with action. Your desire is on a mental level, but the only means of comprehending any form of satisfaction would be on a physical level. If pleasure were in external objects, they would always give pleasure without diminishment. You assume pleasure in the objects, and if you act to get them, you're basically moving towards the pleasure out there with your body. Sensuality is insatiable because it is trying to solve the problem where it isn't. By not seeing that pain is required first, you think that pleasure is over there, and you have to engage bodily to get it. An external bodily engagement is you accessing that external pleasure. Pleasure is not over there and later, but in relief from wanting here and now. Action with the body feels like accessing an assumed external pleasure from the pain that moves you. The pleasure you feel of its endurance is the pain of its pressure. If the pressure were to cease, the action would cease. Gratification is not in an end experience, but within the present phenomena of pressure that makes you act and endures with the action. All sensuality requires too much effort. All sensuality involves notions of the future. A projection of the relief from the present pain. In the future. Impatience is wanting that future now. That thought of future is within the present pain. There is no future, only suffering here and now. I'll have pleasure in the future equals present apprehension. There is only anticipation or peace, apprehension or relaxation. And sensuality is striving for an imagined future now. The same pressure increases and endures in its presence. Having to do is like having an itch you have to scratch by acting out. Not having to do is tranquil energy. Any sensual experience can only culminate in a sight, smell, taste, touch, sound. All are empty, unimpressive, and the prattle of fools. It's all laughably bullshit. That future pleasure would just be relief of this present pain. The assumed future pleasure is within the relief of this present pain. Therefore, there should be no leaning towards an assumed future. How do you relate to this present pressure? As if it subtly and hopefully goes away? That is the sensual future causing the present pain. Anticipating the feeling of pleasure is expectation of present pain disappearing. Sensuality is a disease of leprosy. Health is not needing to scratch, for there is no itch. The greatest of all gains is health. Nibbana is the greatest bliss. The Eightfold Path is the best of paths, for it leads safely to the deathless. So say all the Buddhas. The stream is the Eightfold Path, maintaining Nibbana through the health of non-doing and renunciation, maintaining satisfaction mindfully when walking, sitting, standing, or lying down. Sense spaces will implore you to act out. Do not be tricked by 6 kinds of thoughts. Thoughts are empty of pressure, as are elements empty of pressure. Sensuality is being sucked into a focus point, sucked through and down the senses. So maintain perspective on this creature, this body you are paired with. Gratification reveals the danger because it requires change, thus the wanting of change. All sensual pursuit is a distraction from the root pressure that needs to be understood. That pressure which endures and goes unseen in action. A disturbed sensual act is always through an already undisturbed sense base, the unaffected basis you depend on and cannot reach. Therefore, do not engage with the eye. Do not engage with the ear. Do not engage with the nose. Do not engage with the tongue. Do not engage with the body. Do not engage with thoughts. Leave them and the relationship undisturbed. Just beyond that perception of matter, that energy body, beyond it, inaccessible, determining the experience, is a rotting corpse, a skeleton, blood-smeared. Do not lean towards it. Do not pick it up for unnecessary use. It is gross. It is a grave. It is alien. It is certain death. Certain death. Certain. It is the only certainty. The mind cannot be pressured by anything other than its own desire, and the external consumption can never satiate the inner thirst. In fact, you poison yourself through engagement. Would you feel any degree of pleasure on account of possibility of pain going away if you didn't feel pain in the first place? Pain is always required first. The extent of pleasure is fully determined. So pleasant because it's painful. While you are feeling that pleasure, it is painful, and it feels like you're escaping it. Giving priority to the possibility of pain disappearing is felt pleasantly. The sensual thought of future possibility is within present pain to be relieved. Can unarisen sensuality arise now? Undermine future possibilities of dukkha. Review your freedom and polish. With vigilance. Maintain wholesome states. Abandon the unwholesome states. Develop further wholesome states. And remove the possibility for unwholesome to arise in the future or ever again.